It's honestly been a couple of years since I've done a video like this. I used to present a couple of times a year early in the work of this channel the 5 First Saturdays devotion, a plea that you begin the 5 First Saturdays devotion. And I sort of stopped doing that after Francis's alleged consecration that named the country that was requested because, well, casting any doubt on that event at the time gained you a lot of unnecessary hate and caused a lot of stress, and I just didn't want to deal with it. So I paused that effort for a while. I think it's suffice to say now that almost a year later, things have gotten markedly worse in the world since his act. It hasn't helped, maybe even made things worse. And it calls into question a lot of things. And it could very well be that the problem isn't with his consecration. It's with the lack of keeping of the First Saturday's devotion by the laity, which has been a problem since devotion to the Fatima message was promulgated by the church officially in the aftermath of Sister Lucia's various visitations and apparitions and visions, starting in 1917 and going all the way into the 1930s and 40s. So I'm going to today represent to you the 5 First Saturdays devotion. This is a plea that people begin the 5 First Saturdays devotion. And I'm giving this message to you a week before the first Saturday of March. So you have plenty of time to make it work. And I can't think of a better time than Lent, because the 5 First Saturdays devotion is an act of penance. And what is Lent but a season of penance? In fact, if you start it in March, you can meet all 5 of the requirements of the Fatima message, which I will present to you from a priest who was devoted to spreading the message of Fatima, the complete message of Fatima, back in the 1950s. If you start this in March, you will be able to complete this in August, and you'll be able to get enrolled in the Brown Scapular, probably on or around the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which is in July 16th specifically. And wearing the Brown Scapular is part of the Fatima message, as I will show you here in a minute. But let's begin with the 5 First Saturdays devotion. You go to Mass on the first Saturday of 5 consecutive months. You go to confession within a week of going to that Mass. Most Masses that are devoted to the 5 First Saturdays have a confession available before and during that Mass. And in fact, I actually suggest you find a Mass dedicated to 5 First Saturdays. Don't go to a vigil Mass on a Saturday. The church has never explicitly said that this will not fulfill your obligation, but every first Saturday Mass I've gone to has been devoted by the priest and offered by the priest for the specific intention of the 5 First Saturdays. And the laity who are all there are all for the First Saturday's devotion. And often these Masses are in the morning on a Saturday, which I think works even better than a vigil Mass does on a Saturday night. But you go there for 5 consecutive Saturdays of each month, and you go and you receive the Eucharist, you make confession, and then you do the following 5 things. You go and you atone, you make penance for the following things: for sins committed against her Immaculate Conception by the world, by the people of the world, those who deny her Immaculate Conception. 2, you make reparation for those who deny her perpetual virginity. These are the Protestants, and a lot of times Orthodox and others, and atheists who make this claim against her. 3, you make reparation against her for those who sin against her divine maternity, who refuse to accept her as the mother of all mankind. 4, you make reparation for those who try to publicly implant in the hearts of children indifference, contempt, and even hate against the Immaculate Mother. So those who try to turn the youngest in our culture, the youngest in the world, against Our Lady. And 5, you make reparation for those who insult her directly in her sacred images. We've seen a lot of people desecrate images of like statues and images, parishes being desecrated and things. These are for those things. And I'm going to leave these on the screen for a little while here. But you do this 5 consecutive Saturdays. 5 consecutive first Saturdays would be the first Saturday of March, of April, of May, of June, and of July. You can then do that. You'll be done before August, and you'll be able to get enrolled in the Brown Scapular, which is part of the Fatima message. The 5 First Saturdays devotion is part of the larger devotion to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the priest you're going to hear from in a minute here is Father Howard Rafferty. He was a Carmelite priest in the 1950s who was traveling the country, spreading devotion to Our Lady and the message that wearing the brown scapular was part of the Fatima message. And you'll hear from him directly in a moment. But what I'm about to read to you is an excerpt from his book, Take This Scapular. And it's about devotion to the Immaculate Heart and how devotion to the Immaculate Heart is part of the Fatima message. So, Father Rafferty, in his own words, quote, "In August of 1917, Our Lady pleaded, 'Many souls go to perdition because they have no one to sacrifice and pray for them. It is impossible for you and I to live apart, to have no influence on others. A great saint, Mary Magdalene of Pazzi, once stated, how humbled we shall be for all eternity, if because of our negligence many souls that might have enjoyed an eternity of happiness are found to be in perdition. Then it will be too late for us to help them. Now there is yet time to save ourselves and save many more together with us. We therefore ask, what means has Mary offered to us in her Fatima message? She offers devotion to her Immaculate Heart. In the very first vision of the angel of peace, the children were told to pray because the angel said, 'The hearts of Jesus and Mary will be attentive to the voice of your supplication.' Again, late in the summer of 1916, the angel appeared the third and last time, gave the children the body and blood of Christ in Holy Communion, saying, 'Through the infinite merits of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary, beg of God the conversion of poor sinners.' Our Lady herself brought out the fuller meaning of devotion to her heart when in June of 1917, after telling the children they must say the rosary daily and offer sacrifices for sinners, she suddenly opened her hands and revealed her Immaculate Heart. That heart was surrounded with thorns, pierced and bleeding. Although Our Lady said nothing about her heart on this occasion, the children understood that her heart was pierced and bleeding because of sin, that Our Lady wanted reparation for sin. Again, in July of that same year, our mother told about the coming plague of the hammer and sickle, causes of wars and persecution of the church, promised that she would stop the tide of sin by asking the devotion to her Immaculate Heart be established in the world. She concluded with the triumphant words, 'In the end, my Immaculate Heart shall triumph, and an era of peace will be given to the world.' The deeper meaning of devotion to Mary's Immaculate Heart may be gained from the prayer Our Lady told the children to say before making a sacrifice. 'O my Jesus, it is for love of you, for the conversion of sinners, and in reparation for all the crimes committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary.' At Fatima, she pleaded for a consecration in which we give ourselves in surrender of love, promising her that we will first of all say the daily rosary. Secondly, offer little sacrifices for sinners. Thirdly, make the 5 Holy Communions of reparation on the first Saturdays. In the last visit at Fatima, she gave us the outward sign of this consecration when she appeared as Our Lady of Mount Carmel and held the brown scapular in her outstretched hand. It is the same mark of salvation given her to Saint Simon Stock, saying, 'Whoever dies wearing this shall not suffer eternal fire. It shall be a sign of salvation, a protection in danger, and a pledge of peace.' Our Lady said nothing when she held out her scapular at Fatima. No words were necessary because Our Lady's scapular has been a sign of special dedication to her for these past 700 years. It should now remind all Catholics of consecration to Mary's Immaculate Heart." The brown scapular isn't mentioned explicitly because it had been part of the Catholic common heritage for 700 years. People knew about the brown scapular. It was promoted much more actively than now. It's almost fallen by the wayside unless you were going to traditional parishes. So to wear the brown scapular, pray the rosary daily. I suggest praying the little office of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Regardless of what you think of the Sabbatine privilege, praying more will not hurt at all. Each office of the little office takes only a few minutes, with the exception of Vespers, which takes 5 to 10 minutes, and Matins and Lauds, which you pray before prime in the morning. Matins and Lauds can take about 20 minutes, but the rest of it takes only a few minutes out of your day. And if you do the rosary and the little office, you will get to an hour of prayer every day without any worry at all. That's enough for me, though. Here's Father Rafferty himself in a rare recording. Here he's speaking about his visit with Sister Lucia, whom he went to Italy to go speak with in the 1950s to find out if the brown scapular, wearing it, was part of the Fatima message. And his takeaway, she told him flat out that if you are not wearing the brown scapular, you are not living the Fatima message.
Everyone in America believes that there are 4 conditions of the Fatima message. First of all, we are to say the rosary every day, Secondly, we are to offer the sacrifices of daily life. Thirdly, we are to make communions of reparation on the first Saturdays. And finally, we are to consecrate ourselves to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Oh, she said, there is one more condition, the wearing of the scapular, the symbol of our consecration. Well, I said, now let me get this straight. You mean to say that if someone did all four things and didn't wear the scapular, that he would not fulfill what Our Lady asked for? She said he could not fulfill. He could not fulfill what Our Lady asked for at Fatima if he refused to wear the scapular. Well, I said, in other words, it isn't just something which Our Lady would like us to do. It is something which is essential to the message. In other words, if you don't wear the scapular, you could not follow that message. She said, exactly. You could not follow the message of Fatima unless you add also the fifth condition, which is the wearing of the brown scapular of Our Lady. There was a Franciscan priest on our pilgrimage, and I guess he wanted to start a great big argument. He had said to me, when you get in there, you ask Lucy which she considers more important, the saying of the daily rosary or the wearing of the scapular. But at this point, now face to face with Sister Lucy, the question seemed out of place. I tried to give her a chance to dismiss it by saying, there's another question here, and it's kind of foolish, but I promised that I would ask it. Which is more important, the saying of the daily rosary or the wearing of the scapular all the time? She gave an answer that has been quoted, I think, millions of times. Father, the rosary and the scapular are inseparable. You cannot have one without having the other.
So there you have it. Please, if you have not kept the 5 first Saturdays, a week from now is a first Saturday. Begin keeping the 5 first Saturdays. Keep 5 consecutive first Saturdays of the month. Go to confession, receive communion, spend 15 minutes in prayer, meditating on the mysteries of the Rosary after Mass. Make reparation for all the outlined sins that we've talked about already. I can't think of no better way to spend your Lent than this. Let me know what you thought of this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help, as does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot, too. As always, pray for the Church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.